Okay, ladies, so we've gone through your grip, your stance, and your load, and so now we're going to go through stride and separation. So Tony, get in your good stance, 50-50, go into your load. Again, making sure your load, that you're in your K posture, that it is balanced, and it's 50-50, you're not going back, all right? So as you get ready to go into your stride, you can start, as Tony has done, with kind of a medium stance, right? And if you have a medium stance when you stride, Tony, just take a small stride. It's just it's a little bit of a small stride moving forward with that foot. I want your left foot to be at about where it was or up to a 45-degree angle here. So that's going to give you more balance when you come out. It doesn't need to be inside and it doesn't need to be all the way out. So you're going to be turning it a little bit toward first base. Okay? So back in your load. So when you get into that load, and we've talked about how you're going to get into the rock the baby and how you're going to get into the seesaw, right? So you get ready to load and go into your stance, then go back into, and you could do a small stance. So go into a small stance. The challenge with a small stance is your stride is a very long stride. Go into a long stance or a real wide stance. If you do a wide stance, then there really is no stride. You're just picking your foot up and putting it back down. All right, show them on that, Tony. Yeah, there's nothing to it. So I'd rather you get into a medium stance and you have a small stride and you're looking at 2, 3, maybe up to 5 inches, depending on how tall you are or short you are. But it's going to be just a short stride to getting out and getting that foot turned just a little bit toward that first base. This gives you a little more stability in your stance, making sure that you're 50-50 and you don't load back. Now, one of the challenges when you come in and you go to the stride is a lot of times when you go to take the stride, you have a tendency to go back. So show that, Tony. A lot of times you'll come back and you notice she's lost her K posture. She's not only lost her K posture, that as she came in, look at her shoulder has started opening up. So remember we did the rock the baby where you're coming through and you don't want that to happen. You got to get back into that 50-50 balanced stance. You're going to come in for your stride. The foot's turned a little bit and you're getting ready to go into the next phase. Now, the next piece of this, which is a little more difficult, is separation. So as you go into your stride, the same thing that should happen is your hip should go from a load where your hip is turned a little bit to the back to it turns a little bit to the front. Notice my shoulders didn't move, Tony's shoulders don't move, but you can see that her hips have opened up just a little bit. It's not a lot, it's just a little bit on that side. So do it again, stand up, go into your load, K posture, stride, and that hip has turned just a little bit. And as you turn, what happens is the shoulder starts coming up, your back starts coming down, and you're ready to go forward. Now notice what you're wanting is a little bit more of the knee pointing back toward the pitcher, right, as you're going forwards. And then as you get further into the stance, you'll see that this back leg will do more of a turn coming back in, okay? And we'll talk about in that a little bit not squishing the bug. What you have a tendency to do, if you see a bug, you step on it and you squish. A lot of times, and many of you, when you turn, you're just turning the foot and you're squishing, right? So I want you to come in and we're going to get a little bit of movement forward. So the other part of the stride, you have to understand it's a controlled fall going forward. So Tony, get in your stance, do your stride. It's not a push off, right? And it's not a lunge forward with your body. It's just a controlled fall going forward. It's that little bit of a step to get you your momentum. It's a little bit of a turn on your hips to get your hips to where they're moving. So I'll show you a drill to work on your hips. So Tony, get into your stance. Take the bat and hold it up the way I showed you. Now, turn your hips. That's it. Do it again. You can do this in a mirror. Notice, don't turn your shoulders. Your shoulders stay the same. Turn your hips. Now, here's the other way you can do it. Get one of your parents to help you. Get back into the stance. Let's apply some pressure. Get into your load. Now turn your hip. I want you to feel the hip coming over, but your shoulders haven't moved, okay? Now this is, over time, all of this is going to come into one fluid motion and it'll come natural, but I'm having to break it down to you into piece by piece by piece. And this, with me holding Tony the way I did, feels a little bit uncomfortable because you're twisting your hip over, but you haven't moved your shoulders. Most of you probably have been taught to bring the shoulders around. That opens it up and the ball goes either foul or goes to the left where you end up missing it. All right, Tony, anything I miss?
Okay.
Oh, one other thing, when you take your stride, so you see my broomstick? When she takes her stride, again, we talked a little bit about the closed stance where her feet are parallel to the broomstick. And when she steps out and she takes her stride, that foot and her toes maintains the same distance from the line of the broomstick. If you start with an open stance, when you take the stride, that foot has to come back up, right? And so Tony's not used to doing an open. There you go. It's got to come back and come right back in line with your other toe. Then you're ready to go forward with your hit instead of being open and then pulling the ball off to the left. All right, so I hope this helps. And then next we'll come back in and we'll talk about your bat path and how to get the bat in the right angle to hit on the path that it needs to give you your best hit.